Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And today is the first day of the new calendrical year, year 24. And I would want to wish you a happy new year. I hope you had a lovely New Year's Eve. We had um, a delightful New Year's Eve broadcast here on Pagan World TV last night. If you haven't already seen that, I recommend watching it. It was delightful. Um, we had a number of guests, including Layla and Seirdware and uh, Jason Heikerel, and um, a lovely program. And hello to Rev Michael in the chat room. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, um, if you type your questions or comments on whatever platform you happen to be watching on, they'll show up here in my chat room and we can talk directly. And for our first broadcast of the year, I think I want to talk about, or to continue talking about, um, how the coming of all New Year's days, including this calendrical New Year, is a time to let go of the past and embrace the future. And hello to Christine in the chat room. And Christine says, yes, it was a wonderful program. And hello to Raven in the chat room. Um, and for a lot of us, we've spent this weekend, hello to Mary in the chat room, we're really working to let go of what we don't want to carry forward from year 23. And today we need to focus on what we do want to have. Oh, hello to Ebony in the chat room. It's good to see you, Ebony. What we do want to have in year 24. And New Year's is always a time of transformation from one energy to another. And among those energies is the numerological value of the year. And in the Corellian calendar, we're in year 24 Aquarius, which is a 6. In the Gregorian calendar, we're in year 2024, which is an 8. Um, and these are very interesting, different energies. And the way I tend to take that is that the Gregorian New Year, being the new year of the world, um, is and hello to Peter in the chat room. May Goddess bless you, Peter. Have a wonderful New Year. I tend to think of the Gregorian New Year as the New Year of the world, the outer energy. So the energy of this year on the outside is very much the energy of the number 8, which is a very strong karmic energy. It's a year of great success or great failure, not much in between. It is a time of strong emotion. Hello to Davika in the chat room. Happy New Year, Davika. Um, and um, Very strong energies. But for me, as a follower of the Corellian calendar, it is the inner energy of the year. And 6 is the energy of home and comfort and love and good feeling. And so, what I'm hoping to see in this year, what I expect to see in this year based on the numerology, is a year with a great deal of action and accomplishment and transformation in the outside world, but security and peace on the inside world. And how do we get that? Well, we're magical people. We make the world that we experience. And they say that energy goes where energy flows where attention goes. Um, and so where we put our attention is going to be very important in the coming year. So I think that to put our attention on home and security and happiness and good feeling is a very good place to start. Earlier today, I saw one of those puzzles you sometimes see, um, where they say the first word you see is the energy of the new year. And the first word I saw was kindness, and I'm very happy with that resolution. I think that if we can go into this year in a spirit of kindness and compassion, um, we will do well. And it is always better, I think, to try to find the most compassionate way of dealing with things. And certainly is not necessarily what we see in society around us. But in the end, what does that mean? That's on them. Our choice is how we react, what we do um, in the world at large. And, we can um, be combative and easily offended, or we can be compassionate and find better ways of doing things. Hello to Maggie in the chat room. Happy New Year, Maggie. Um, and there are always people who who want to tear down, who want to go around damaging others, who to make a want to make the world a contentious and difficult place. But happily, there are also people who build up, who create good things, um, who try to build a better world. And again, the energy flows where the attention goes. And so, if we focus on those good things and those good people, I think that we'll find we're happier with our lives. And um, that is the energy that I want to project into this new year. I'm expecting it to be a year with a lot of activity, um, a year with many projects, and hopefully a year of many good things. And if we're going to judge from New Year's Eve and New Year's morning, um, it's shaping up very well already. New Year's Eve was spent with good friends and lovely people, and the morning has seen positive activity in several different areas. So I feel pretty good about things. One of the things that we discussed in last night's program, it was a prediction program for the coming year, and everyone seems to feel that this is going to be a very major year. I did a little bit of a reading for it on Friday. Probably I'll do another one today. For me, it came up as a very transformative year for the world. And I think that that is very much what we're going to see. But it also said that it would be positive in its outcomes. Um, and sometimes what constitutes a positive outcome is entirely dependent on how you're looking at it, what you do with it. Um, they say one person's trash is another person's treasure. And I think this is true in life also. I've talked before about how, if you're looking for the good, you can always find it. And I've told this story before too, but I'm an old man. I tend to retell the same stories. Years ago, and by years ago, I mean in the 1980s, I remember watching an episode of the Oprah program. And it was about losing weight, which was not an infrequent subject for talk shows at that time. And they had this one physical fitness expert who had the point of view that no one could ever find happiness if they were not in a position of being very physically fit. And this person was very bitter. Um, they just could not believe that anyone could be happy with a lifestyle different from their own. And I remember sitting there and thinking, there are all kinds of people facing or having faced far larger problems than a little extra weight, who still found a way to find happiness in life. Um, there are many people facing fairly severe disabilities who lead happy lives. Why? Because they choose to. One of the people I often bring up on this subject is Corrie Ten Boom. And Corrie Ten Boom was a Holocaust survivor from World War II. She was um, from, I believe, the Netherlands. And she wrote a book called The Hiding Place. about her experiences and how even going through the concentration camps, she was able to find moments of happiness and moments that restored her faith in deity and the world. And if someone can still find evidence of the good things in the universe in a situation like that while undergoing tremendous personal loss, anyone can find good things in the world. It's a matter of whether you're looking for them. She talked about how uh, at one point she noticed, I think it was a spider in the window, going about its normal life, weaving its web and so forth. And how this reminded her that while bad things were happening, terrible things were happening. And she herself had experienced, again, terrible personal loss, the death of members of her family, and etc., that there were still good things in the world. There was still good energy in the world. Um, and that this was worth remembering. And hello to Tom in the chat room. Hello to Lavola in the chat room. And Happy New Year to everyone. Um, so when things happen that perhaps bring annoyance or pain, remember that, this is just a momentary thing. And overall, we live in a wonderful world. Um, sometimes we'll encounter trolls in our chat rooms and in our lives. And, what do we do with those? Well, for the best part, we ignore them. We don't allow other people's negativity to bring us down if we can possibly help it, because that's what they will do. That's what they're about. Um, and that's very sad that anyone is living their life in that energy, but you can't fix that for them. You can only deal with your own energy. And I think that it's very important for us to remember that we set the tone of our lives. We can look into the future and um, look for the good things in life, focus on positive projects, or we can be totally focused on things of the past that upset us. I know which one I prefer. I know which one I choose. Hello to Julia in the chat room, and I recommend the same to you. And hello to Cherry in the chat room. And Cherry says, glad we made it to a new year. Be positive with yourself and life will be great. Exactly. Cherry has said it perfectly. Um, and hello to Joanna, or to Joanne in the chat room. And Joanne says, nature is sometimes the most hopeful of inspiration. Absolutely. I was taught growing up that if you want to understand God in the total neutral sense of the word, you look at nature, because where else can you more clearly see the divine character than in nature, in that idea of as above, so below? Um, And when you look at nature, what do you see? You see endless activity. You see endless life. You see endless creation. Um, and when one thing doesn't work, you see something new come up to replace it. Um, Nature is in the end a very positive place. It's also a place of endless change and transformation. And this, if we believe in the concept of as above, so below, which I was raised to believe in, and hello to Rita in the chat room. And happy 2024, Rita. But if we believe in the idea of as above, so below, and we look at nature for our inspiration, what we see is endlessly transforming, growing, trying one thing, and if it works, running with it, trying another thing if it doesn't work. And if we look at the history of this world, there have been so many different ecosystems, so many different life forms, so many different variations on those life forms, um, that how can we not be inspired by that? And if that is the nature of God, of deity, of spirit, um, how wonderful a revelation. And hello to Brian in the chat room. Um, so when I think of deity, this is what I think of. I think of that endless spirit of life and endless transformation and endless new ideas. And And hello to James in the chat room. And the Lady Bitterwind was one of the great influences on my life, and she was a huge Trekkie um, back in the day. And she had actually a rather large role in Star Trek fandom in the 1970s as an artist and occasionally a writer. But she would have pointed out the Vulcan idea of um, infinite diversity in infinite combination, I believe it is. But that's exactly what you see. That is the nature of life. And so, this idea that we must be one way, that there's only one right way, nature tells us right off the bat that's wrong. So, um, if anyone is telling you their path is the only path, all you have to do is look at the world and see that that cannot be true. Not if you believe in that idea of as above, so below, the idea that the creator is reflected in the creation. There is nothing in nature that would lead you to believe there's only one way of doing anything, or that one way is preferable necessarily to another. Maybe for a certain period of time, maybe for a certain purpose, yes. But across the board, everything has been done in many different ways. And these have led, in some cases, to very different conclusions that remind us just how diverse the world is, and therefore how diverse the nature of deity must be, and how diverse we can be ourselves, how diverse we should be ourselves. Um, there are certain philosophies who think that the right way of doing things is to go along a narrow road, which is, in my mind, absolute nonsense. The road of life is wide and winding, and we only need to look at the world to see that. Um, if the world had one form of life alone on it, there'd be no life today because conditions have changed so often and so greatly during the course of history that very few of them could have survived. And had there been only one, it surely would not have, um, and certainly would never have become anything greater. There are so many species that we know from the archaeological record, but we don't see them in the world today because they had their moment and something new replaced them. Something new grew up um, that was more suited to the moment. And that will happen again and again and again. It happens in our lives also. And, we did our Yule ritual not long ago here on Pagan World TV. And this year we used a Yule ritual that focused on the idea um, adapted from Dickens' Christmas Carol of the three spirits of solstice, past, present, and future. Hello to Jan in the chat room. It's good to see you, Jan. But we also used the same thing, the same theme I always tend to use in solstice rituals, the idea that when you reach anything that resembles a moment of perfection, you have come to the point where you must change. When you have done your very best and created your very best, well, then you must create something new because it cannot stay at that plateau. It can for a little while, but not indefinitely. That's not how nature works. Hello to Lavola in the chat room. And Lavola says, I agree with you 100%, Rev Don. Thank you, Lavola. When we reach anything resembling perfection, that is the moment that the universe will tell us to change and, if need be, force us to change. Because it is not the nature of this world to be static. That doesn't mean that that moment of perfection was wrong. It just means it was temporary. And that's the nature of all existence in this life. And that doesn't mean we don't try to build things that last, but it does mean we know they don't last forever. It doesn't mean that we're not devoted to the work that we do. Of course we are. But we also know that the forms it will take are not entirely in our own hands. And we know that every growing thing we look at, certainly If we look at the way that rivers run, the way that trees grow and branch out into the universe, um, even, for example, the veins in our own body, the thing we see is they do not follow straight lines. Straight lines are not one of the aspects of God or spirit or deity or however you want to put the term. But straight lines are not reproduced in the world because they're not part of that equation. There are certain philosophies that are totally focused on the idea of straight lines, and the people who are in them are never happy because you can't be happy on a straight line. The line must wander. The line must expose you to many things, or you're wasting your time in this world. Because we're here to grow. We're here to transform ourselves for the better. And that requires constant change, constant learning, constant activity. And as long as we're in this world, we must continue to grow. We must continue to change. It's the nature of things, it's the purpose of them. So as we look to this new year, we need to bear this in mind that, like every other year we've ever lived through, it will be a year of change and transformation. They all are. It's the nature of life. But what will be the nature of that change and transformation? And that's where we come in ourselves. That's where our focus is important. That's where our choice of how we react to what we receive is important. And I ask you to join me in choosing to see the good, to act from compassion. It may be that at times the universe will force you to do things that are perhaps not pleasant. And in that case, you do the best you can. You do that next right thing. Because sometimes you're not the only one who needs to grow. And things must always move forward. So with that, I'm going to draw a couple of cards for the new year. I did this on Friday, but I'm going to do it again today. And now that we're actually in year 24, let's see what they have to say for us. And I am shuffling. Well, I guess you can actually see it on this camera. You speak to us, O cards, about year 24. And of course, I'm using the Tarot of Hecate, which I designed way back in the 1980s. You know, when I think of the years in which I designed this deck and look at my life today, there have been so many changes, so many adventures. And I know there are more waiting because I'm still alive. And one thing that's always true, as long as you're still alive, is you're still growing and you're still changing. So I'm going to cut the cards and then I'm going to draw 3. The first card we've drawn is the Mind. Second card we've drawn is the Page of Pentacles, the Princess of Pentacles, and the third is the Seven of Wands. So the Mind says that there will be a lot to think about and understand in this year, a lot of things happening, but that we have the ability to react to them, to understand them, to choose our way of responding to them. And the Princess of Coins says that we may choose to stand back from some of those things, that we will want to, for want of a better way to put it, we'll want to choose where we put our energy and not scatter it all over the place. And finally, we have the Seven of Wands, which is victory after hard work. It means that there'll be a lot of things happening this year, but the outcome looks pretty good. And Christine says, I use the deck you designed. It serves me well. Thank you, Christine. And let us draw 3 more cards and see what else they have to say for us. And I've drawn the Four of Lamps, the Fool, and the Magus. Of course, in the Major Arcana, the Fool and the Magus follow one another, but I drew them out of completely different parts of the deck. So the Four of Lamps says that we must follow our spiritual guidance. We must seek the advice of spirit and listen to where we are led. The Fool says to us that this year is a chaos moment. Where the world is going, where we're going, is very much still kind of in the air. And it depends on how we react to this year, how we use the opportunities we're given. Everything is possible. Wonderful, positive things are possible. Terrible missteps are possible. All depends on what we do. So again, we must listen to the advice of spirit. We must follow our inclinations, our intuitions, and go forward. And the Maga says that we have the ability to make exactly what we desire. If we do this, if we pay attention to all the things the universe is offering us and take advantage of them in a good, positive way, rather than being distracted by all the nonsense that will be happening. And you don't have to look far to see that there's a lot of nonsense happening in the world. There are people crying that the sky is falling every day. The whole national media and international media seems utterly devoted to this idea. And in places, the sky is falling, but not everywhere. And for most of us who are listening to this program, our sky is not falling, though there are certainly people trying to pull it down in some cases. So what do? We hold it up. We go forward, we do that next right thing, we listen to spirit, we listen to our intuition, we all have it. And when we know that right thing to do, we do it. We don't talk ourselves out of it. We don't allow ourselves to be overpowered by emotion. Instead, we do what we know we need to do, and we will have a wonderful year. Let me draw one last card. And the last card I've drawn is the Queen of Swords. And the Queen of Swords is learning from past experience. So for all of us, as we go into this year, we want to look at last year and the year before and the year before that to see, I'm going to be bold enough to say, to see the things that we should not do as we react to this year. And in some cases, to see the things we should do. Look back over those years and see what went well and what went badly. And be at pains to reproduce what went well. Now, you can't always judge the future from the past, but with the Queen of Swords, it's a good indication. So pay attention to the lessons you have learned. Hold them in your heart as you go forward, and let them be also guidance to you as you make your decisions in this coming year. And that is my reading for year 24 in year 24. And I think my ultimate message from that is what I always say, is that when we have to decide the next thing to do, we choose the next right thing and do our best to do. And with that, I see that we're coming to the end of our half hour. And I want to say again, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope that that you have a wonderful year. Hope we all have a wonderful year. And that those things you choose for yourself, those adventures you desire, that growth that you want, will come to you in the most positive way. With that, let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives, and we ask you to help us to focus on the positive, to react to things in the most passionate and positive ways, and to avoid the temptation to scatter our energy on things that annoy us, when we can be using it to build the things we love. Help us to be focused on the good things in life and creating them for ourselves and for others. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love, knowing you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And one last time, Happy New Year, and may your year 24 be a wonderful